Hello everyone, welcome to the Gravity channel. So we are going to continue with electrostatics today. So in the last video we saw a column table like this. This table was formed by Greece people, particularly Miletus. So the left column was called positive and the things in the right column were called negative. On further investigation, on further experimenting, it was found that it is not a two-column table at all. The elements shouldn't be arranged in this manner. In fact, it should be one big series, a single column series. So paper, wood, rubber and polythene should be here. So this series is only an example of few elements. This series called the triboelectric series is actually a very big series, obviously containing all possible elements, all possible pairs of friction. So triboelectric series, tribo for friction, electric representing charge and a series. So it's a big series of objects, of substances. So how to interpret this series? Like if it was a column, it was fairly simple. It was obvious that one thing was called positive and another was negative. The namings could have been different, but that's not today's topic. So today we are going to discuss three things. One, interpreting the triboelectric series. What does it mean? How do charges get exchanged within the elements in this series? Second, further getting accustomed with charges, we are going to study more about properties of charges. So yeah, charge is a property of matter like it was discussed in the last lecture. We are going to see more properties of this very property of matter. Okay, how a charge is. Like intellect is a property of wise men. So how intellect is, what intellect would do to things. So today we are going to study that about charges. Third, how to measure charges. What are the methods of measuring these charges? We are going to see these three things. Okay, so we are beginning with our first topic, triboelectric series interpretation. So there are only two rules of interpreting these series. Rule number one, deciding what's positive and what negative. Fairly simple rule. When elements higher in this series are rubbed with elements lower in this series, the higher elements become positively charged and the lower elements become negatively charged. So it's not that if glass is rubbed with paper, then glass becomes positive and paper becomes negative. It's not the only rule. Even when glass is rubbed with wool, glass becomes positive and wool becomes negative. Okay, so rule number one, I think it's clear enough. I shouldn't go further in it. Rule number two, how much charge things acquire. The rule is the farther the elements are in this series, the more charged they become. The easier it is to charge them, the lesser time is required to charge them. For example, we may take our polythene and hair example that we had seen in the last video. So when hair is rubbed with polythene, rule number one says hair is positive and polythene becomes negative. Let's call this pair 1. Hair 1, polythene 1. Now we take another volunteer. We are taking too many volunteers and rubbing their hair with polythene. So when hair of the volunteer 2 is rubbed with say paper, the hair and paper get charged. This becomes positive, paper becomes negative. But the hair of volunteer 1 acquires more charge which was rubbed with polythene compared to the hair of volunteer 2 which was rubbed with paper, provided they are rubbed with the same force and for the same amount of time. Okay, so the farther the elements in this series, the more charged they become, easier it is to charge them, the lesser time is required to charge them. Okay, so these are two rules. Obviously these rules were observed, lot of times they were experimented, and then later on it was studied the why of these rules, as to why some elements become positive, why some elements become negative, why farther elements become more charged. Okay, so the why of these things lies inside the structure of an atom. We have a small joke in science. It is said that never trust an atom, they literally make up for everything. Okay, so the hair is made up of atom, the polythene which is rubbed with, it's made up of atoms. I am drawing a few examples here. So let's say this is an atom representing here. this is an atom representing polythene. Okay, so obviously hair and polythene are not simply made up of atoms. Hair is made up of keratin protein. Keratin is a long chain molecule, but that molecule itself ultimately contains small atoms only. Similar as with polythene. Polythene again a long chain molecule. It contains atoms. Okay, so this is a representative atom of hair. This is a representative atom of polythene. Now this is somewhat rudimentary structure of an atom. It is called the planetary model, where the electron is moving around the proton. So the current model does not exactly work like this, but this much is sufficient for the current discussion. Now the electron moves around the proton, around the positive center. This has been established, well established. There is an attraction between the positive center and the electron. This attraction leads to movement of electron around the proton. This is called the planetary model. So like the earth goes around the sun because it is attracted to the sun, otherwise it would have been going on its own path. Similarly, the electron is attracted to proton. The same goes with polythene. The electron of polythene is attracted to the proton of polythene. But the force of attraction between these two of hair is weaker than the force of attraction between the electron and the positive center of polythene. This force of attraction has different magnitude. It is weaker for hair, it is stronger for polythene. The electrostatic zone around the positive center of polythene is stronger. It doesn't let its electron go easily. In fact, if other electrons come in this electrostatic zone, it attracts them also. The electrostatic zone around the proton of hair is weaker. This weakly holds its electron. So when these both are brought close enough, when they are rubbed, when there is friction between them, the electron of hair comes in the zone of electron of polythene, and polythene strips away this electron and has an excess electron. Therefore, polythene becomes negatively charged. It has excess electrons, and because hair let go its electron, it becomes positively charged. Okay, so this principle goes with all the elements of this series. The higher elements do not bind their electrons so strongly when compared to the lower elements. Therefore, in an event of friction, in an event of any other reaction, the higher elements lose their electrons easily and they remain positive. The lower elements gain the electrons of others also and they end up being negative. Okay. So this triboelectric series has led to a lot of inventions. This one such invention is Van de Graaff generator. Van de Graaff generator has been used to study the basics of the universe. Okay, we are not going into details of Van de Graaff generator in this lecture. That is for another class. So yeah, this was the interpretation of triboelectric series. Higher elements become positive because they don't bind their electrons so strongly when compared to lower elements, and lower elements become negative. Okay. Now we are going to the second topic, understanding charge more. Properties of charge. So one of the properties of charge we had already studied, that there are two types of charge. Unlike mass is only positive. So now we are studying properties of charge, topic number 2. Okay. So first property of charge, we call it polarity. Polarity means there are two types of charge, positive and negative. Okay. So it's not like mass. Mass is positive always, unless we are talking about antimatter, but that's a different story. So in this observable universe, what we live in, things which we interact with, in all these things, mass is positive. It always attracts other mass. Unlike that, charge is of two types, positive and negative. Now some people might say that there is a neutral charge also, which is zero charge, but that is no charge. So when there is no charge, you say it's neutral charge. So it's not charge at all. So two types of charges, positive and negative. The rules are fairly simple. Positive and negative attract each other. Positive repel each other. negative also repel each other, and there is no interaction with the neutral charge. Okay. The second property is called additivity of charges. So this property says that when charges are clubbed, when you add more charges to it, charges simply add up like numbers. So 3 coulomb charge plus 4 coulomb charge is always going to be 7 coulomb charge. It's never going to be 3 times 4, 12 units of charge. No. It's never going to be 3 to the power 4 or 3 factorial into 4 factorial, nothing else. When charges are put together, they get added like numbers, plain numbers. Why I am stressing this is there are other quantities in which simple addition of number does not occur. For example, take force for example. When you apply 3 Newton of force, 3 units of force and 4 units of force on something, it's not necessarily always 7 units of force. If both the forces are in same direction, then it's 7 units. If they are in different directions, then it's 1 unit in this direction. What if you apply force like this? You pull something with 3 units on one side and with 4 units someone else is pulling it. So the object does not go in both the directions. That cannot happen. It might break, but we are now considering of a rigid object. So it necessarily goes in this direction, inclined towards 4, and the total force can be calculated with Pythagoras. It's 5 units of force. So in force, direction becomes important when you are adding force. The direction does not matter. In fact, direction does not make sense with charges. So 3 plus 4 coulomb is 7 coulomb. Obviously, you have to consider polarity here. 3 plus minus 4 units of charges is minus 1 only. So here polarity does not indicate direction of charges. Polarity indicates the type of charge. Polarity is not east, west, north, south. No. With forces there is east, west, north, south, up, down. Okay. So to sum up, additivity indicates that charge is scalar quantity. It should be added like numbers. Direction should not be considered. Okay. The next property, a very interesting property of charges, is conservation of charges. Now there are only 4 laws of the universe which have not been broken down. Those laws are the 4 conservational laws. Except these laws, all other laws, all other rules have been broken down at some or the other point. All the laws have exceptions, be it physics, chemistry, be it biology, be it account, statistics, whatever. All the laws have exceptions except these 4 laws. These 4 laws form the very basic structure of our present universe. The universe as we know it is because of these 4 laws. These laws have never been broken down. So what are these laws? The 4 conservation laws. Law of conservation of energy, the most popular one. Law of conservation of linear momentum. Law of conservation of angular momentum, and law of conservation of charge. So charge is one such property which is conserved. So what does this law of conservation of charge say? The law of conservation of charge can be stated as, in an electrically isolated system, the total charge is always conserved. We have to focus on these terms. Total charge is always conserved. Okay. So this is the law, basically a statement. So what does this law mean? That in an electrically isolated system, what's an electrically isolated system? It's such a system in which you do not rather put in or take out charges. So that's an electrically isolated system. You can think of it as a box in which there can be no exchange of charges. There can be exchange of materials, mind you, but no exchange of charged materials. Okay. So in an electrically isolated system, the total charge remains conserved. The total charge is constant. Okay. So now this is different from law of conservation of energy. The energy law says that energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can only be transformed. It changes forms. That is not with charge. Charge does not change form. Suppose you take a box. that box is electrically isolated. Now you are putting this 1 coulomb of charge inside that box. Now the law says that this charge cannot change form, not like energy. It will be positive 1 coulomb charge plus 1 coulomb charge only, unless you put some extra charge or you take out some charge. Unless the system, till the system is electrically isolated, the system is going to have plus 1 coulomb of charge only. Now suppose, let's scrutinize this law. Let's understand this more. Suppose I go for a walk. The system is electrically isolated. I come back and I open the box and I find this 1 coulomb charge which I had put earlier. Along with this, I also find another 1 coulomb charge inside the box. So now I have 1 coulomb and 1 coulomb charge, 2 coulombs of charges from the box. Okay, so the law is not wrong. This can happen. But what this indicates is there must be another minus 1 coulomb charge somewhere inside their box, so that the total charge is still 1 plus 1 and minus 1, totals to 1 coulomb of charge only. This law says that charges can be created or destroyed, but the total charge will remain the same as it was earlier if the system is isolated. So this law does not state that charges cannot be created nor be destroyed. This law says that charges, if created, they are always created in pairs. If destroyed, charges are always destroyed in pairs. So law of conservation of charges implies pair production of charges. Okay. Let's see an example here. A very common phenomenon of nature, light. This is symbol for gamma rays. So gamma rays essentially electromagnetic wave coming from the sun or elsewhere. So gamma rays do get converted into matter. Gamma ray is pure energy. It does get converted into an electron and a positron. Now the charge of this electron is minus 1.6 times 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. Charge of a positron is essentially a positive electron. It's not proton, it's different from proton. The charge is plus. So when you add these, the total charge is still 0 coulomb, which was the initial charge. So this pair production, charges are always formed in pairs. Even the reverse reaction happens. When a positron and an electron meet, they destroy each other, they destroy their masses and get converted to pure energy. This reverse process is called annihilation. And this is pair production. So whatever reaction, whatever friction, whatever you are going to do, whatever polythenes you are going to rub with here, the amount of charges, the amount of electron here loses. The same amount of electrons polythene is going to gain. If not electrons, by some other means. But the charges are going to be same, the total charge is going to be same which was initially. Now if the charge of the universe before the Big Bang was 0, at the time of Big Bang also equal charges were created. So still the charge of the universe, the total charge of our entire universe is still constant. If it was 0 before the Big Bang, even now the total charge of our universe is 0. Okay, whatever charges are going to be produced, they'll always be in pairs. So charges always happen in pairs. Okay, so this is conservation of charges. So now moving on to the fourth property. This is one of my all-time favorite properties. It's called quantization of charges. So yes, the quantization comes from the root word quanta. So quanta is singular for quantum. So yeah, this is something related to quantum physics, quantum mechanics, the fancy physics which is being talked about these days. So before studying quantization of charges, let's see what quantization means. Okay. So the dictionary says quanta is something, when something is in quantum, it means it is in steps. Or to be exact, according to dictionary, it says in packets. Personally, I don't prefer understanding quanta as packets, because packets is a bit misleading. A packet of biscuits contains a lot of biscuits, but a quanta does not has inner subdivisions. A quanta is one. Okay. So if something is in quanta, it is in steps. It is discrete. It is not continuous. We'll take two examples to understand quantization here. Compare analog clock, the wall clock, the tick-tick clock with the digital clock that is in smartphones or in smart wristwatches. Okay. So in the wall clock, the second hand when goes from 0 to 1, it takes all the points between 0 and 1. If you take a picture of the wall clock, it is possible that you may get the second hand stuck somewhere between 0 and 1. But such a situation is not possible with digital clock. When you are clicking the photo of a digital clock, it will show either 0 second or then 1 second or 2 seconds. It is never going to be stuck between 0 and 1. So when you click a photo, it's going to be either 0 or 1. So the digital clock shows quantized time. The analog clock shows analog time, continuous time. Okay. Another example you can take of is steps. So suppose you want to go from the 0th floor to the first floor. So you are taking stairs. Now you can be on the step number 1 or you can be on the step number 2 or 3. Meaning you can be on integral number of steps. You can't be on fractional number of steps. You can't be on 1.5 or 1.7 steps. That doesn't make sense. If you want to take any random height, you have to take slope for that. So slope is not quantized. It is continuous. Steps are quantized. Okay. So this is the whole idea behind quantization, behind quantum physics. So charge is also quantized. Now when I say charge is quantized, I mean charge always occurs in discrete steps. So what is the most basic step of a charge? What is the most basic thing a charge can take? So the smallest possible value a free charge can take is called E, our favorite elementary charge. The value being 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. So this is the quanta of charges. Be it any charge in nature, as high as millions of coulomb to as low as few microcoulombs or millicoulombs, they are in steps of E. Okay. If we try to form an equation, we can write as Q, any charge, is equal to integer steps of E. N is an integer, so N can be a positive number or a negative number. So suppose N is 1, so Q is 1E. 1E is 1.6 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. A charge can be 2 E's, which is 3.2 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulombs. A charge can be 3E, 4.8 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. A charge can never be 3 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. This is not possible. A charge cannot take value 4 into 10 raised to minus 19 coulomb. No, 4 does not come in the table of 1.6. Okay. So only those charges are present freely in nature which take integral multiples of 1.6. These can be negative also, plus or minus 1.6, 3.2, minus 4.8. These values are possible. So the problem is not that we cannot calculate, that humans are incapable of calculating or finding out continuation of charges. The thing is that it does not exist. It's against the very basics of nature. So there are no continuous charges. There are charges in steps of E itself. So this is all about quantization of charges. If quantization is clear enough, I might introduce a slight paradoxical thought in this. So you can take this thought to be the task for today's video. Try to justify what I'm going to say now. So in quantization, I said that charges are only possible in steps of E. In steps of E. Now, the charge of a proton is 1e. Okay, but it has been found that proton is further made up of smaller particles called quarks. So particularly a proton is made up of 3 quarks, 2 up quarks and a down quark. So the charge of an up quark is 2/3 of E. The charge of second up quark, obviously again 2/3 of E. The charge of a down quark is minus 1/3 of E. So when you add these, plus 2 by 3, plus 2 by 3, minus 1 by 3, it comes to be 1e. So proton is 1e and proton has 3 quarks. all the protons have 3 quarks. Okay. So now I am writing fractional charges. We just spoke about quantization where I said no, charges can only be in multiples of E, no fractional multiples. But now I am writing fractional charges. Okay. So the law of quantization is not wrong, and neither is this wrong. So this is the paradoxical question I am introducing today. Okay. Try to write your answers in the comment section. The correct answers will be shown in the next video. Okay. So yeah, now we are moving to our last topic, measurement of charge. How are charges measured? Charges measured. The measurement of charges is called electroscopy. The instruments are called electroscopes. Obviously. So again, electro for charges and scope meaning the range. Measurement of charges. Okay, so electroscopes are the instruments used to measure charges. They work on the principle of repulsion of charges. Most of them work on the principle of repulsion of charges. Okay, so electroscopes date back to the discovery of charges itself in ancient Greece. So I am drawing a diagram of a simple one. This is the historical electroscope. You take a glass bottle, put a cork on its top, make a hole through the cork, put a metal rod through the hole. The top end of the metal rod has a metal blob, and the bottom end, which is inside the glass, has 2 gold leaves. So essentially, this electroscope dates back to the golden era. So this is actually called gold leaf electroscope. Okay, so how does this work? If you want to test a charge on something, say this pen is charged, so you touch the metal blob, the charge flows down through the metal rod to the gold leaves. Now the gold leaves acquire similar charges, either positive or negative, so similar charges, the charge get distributed and then hence they repel. So the gold leaves go apart. So markings used to be made on these bottles. So how high a gold leaf rises, that number used to be given to charges. So very rudimentary method of measuring charges, but yes, for historical importance. This is the original gold leaf electroscope. These days electroscopes have become very advanced. Okay, they measure to very high to very fine charges as low to quarks. Okay, so I have given you a hint for the question of today. Okay, try to find out. So I have tried to make something of an electroscope myself. Okay, so I have stuck 2 aluminium leaves, aluminium foils to a spoon. I have to adjust focus. You can see this, the head of the spoon will be used to acquire charges. Here I have applied cellophane tape so that when I am holding this, I do not leak charges to my finger, which are going to travel from the head to these leaves. You can see the leaves going away farther. So this would determine how much charge is on this polythene. So this was all about electroscopes. So we are ending today's lecture here. In the next lecture, we'll see more about forces. We are almost through with how charges are. Okay, try to rewatch the video, and if you come up with any doubt, please post it in the comment section. I'll try to clarify itself as much as possible. Okay, so a few good friends of mine had a suggestion that I should end these videos with some quote of mine. So the today's quote comes from the lecture itself. Whenever you feel a lot of friction or negativity around yourself, try to let go. You'll stay positive. Thank you. Keep watching.